Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be going right back into our journey to Endgame with part 18 and examine Black Panther. Um, and just to clarify, I did say we were going in chronological order, so technically, actually, Spider-Man comes after this in terms of chronology, because takes place about 2 weeks after Civil War, the events of Civil War, and Spider-Man takes place about 2 months. So I kind of mix those two up, but they're close enough where it's really not that big of a deal. Um, so, you know, we have this movie. It has Chadwick Boseman returning as King T'Challa. It also has Lupita Nyong'o coming in. Forgive me if I forget the character, if not forget, but don't remember the character names. They're kind of hard to pronounce in some cases. Andy Serkis coming back in as Ulysses Klaue from Avengers: Age of Ultron, and Martin Freeman coming in as CIA Agent Ross. Again, he had a small part in Captain America: Civil War. Kind of a blink and you'll miss it type of thing. He's in it at the very end, and he's in it in a very small section in the middle. Um, so, oh, and also Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. So here's the thing about this movie. This is a good world building movie, and I think the whole point of this movie was to kind of establish Wakandan culture. I guess is what the best way to put it. It does a very good job at kind of establishing like what type of culture they live in. It definitely has a very African feel about it in terms of just the clothing and stuff, but it's been updated a bit for Marvel and changed to make it look, you know, a little different, make it look Wakandan, quote unquote. Um, the music is very good. Again, it imbibes that kind of feel. I don't think this movie deserved to be nominated for Best Picture in any way, shape, or form. Um, I think that this movie has problems. I think that it got nominated because of its social messages, which I will get to when we go through the plot. But it's a solid movie, but it's not a great movie, and I'll go through this. So, like most Marvel movies, we start off with actually two separate flashbacks. The first is this kind of CGI thing where it's King T'Chaka talking to a young T'Challa. And we just hear their voices; we don't see them. At least I believe that's what it is. It might also be T'Chaka's brother talking to his son, but they're essentially explaining the history of Wakanda and what happened and when it was formed. And basically, Wakanda was built on a vibranium meteorite that hit Africa millions of years ago. And because of that, they were able to evolve and advance faster than the world around them. So they decided to close themselves off from the world and make the outside world think that they are actually just a common little country with nothing special. Um, when in reality, a lot of the technology is actually behind a cloaked force field that sits in the middle of the country over where the vibranium vibranium meteor actually hit. Um, so after we get past that little segment, which is okay, but it's the beginning of the movie. You have an exposition dump. I get that. Then we get into the actual film, and again, this is a flashback. It's a flashback to 1992, Oakland, California. And again, this is where we kind of get this strange kind of side plot or motivation for the villain in this movie, or one of them anyway. So we get to this scene where it's these two guys in young men who are in an apartment building, and they appear to have like guns stashed everywhere inside this building. We're not talking like handguns. We're talking like M16s in these secret panels on the walls. Um, and then it slowly goes into this scene where these two people show up who are the Wakandan, like, I want to say Secret Service is they're kind of the equivalency of it. These women. They all dress in red. They carry spears and they shave their heads. Um, so they show up along with a young King T'Chaka, and we learn that one of the men in the apartment is actually T'Chaka's younger brother. Now, we also learn in the scene that apparently the younger brother has been selling vibranium in order to arm underprivileged black people in other countries in order to overthrow their oppressors. This is very weird. or I shouldn't say that because they don't really explicitly say that in this scene, although it's implied. But basically, it's the idea that they want to rebel against the oppressors, which is basically everybody else. They essentially want to liberate all black people, um, because apparently everybody who's black is Wakandan. Um, Again, it's a very weird motivation. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in terms of, like, if you were going to do it in terms of a motivation, it's like, all right, there's a specific sect of people, or maybe Wakandans have been neglecting other Wakandans in the African continent, or in other places, or maybe they feel there's a threat to them somewhere or something like that. But basically, we learn this, and then the scene cuts away after that, and we go back to current times. There's a little bit of a flashback to Civil War to kind of give a recap of what's happened. King T'Chaka has been killed in the bombing that was supposedly that was perpetrated by Baron Zemo. Um, and now we come to King T'Challa, or T'Challa, who is going to become king. And it's essentially the first, most of the first act of the movie is just leading up to him becoming the king of Wakanda. They go through all these rituals and stuff like that, and the rituals are actually really interesting. There's a lot of good visual cues. The combat and stuff is very good. But basically, the ritual requires him to strip his powers as the Black Panther and fight as a man. So he does that, and he winds up defeating. Basically, there's five different tribes in Wakanda. There's one that's kind of like an offshoot that like nobody talks about or deals with, and then there's four more that are readily available in there. And the fifth tribe shows up at the coronation ceremony and demands a challenge. So because of that, T'Challa then has to fight the leader of their people. And he winds up winning, and he makes him submit and spares his life. It's supposed to be a fight to the death, but I guess if you submit and the opponent spares their asked to spare their lives, then they just let you. Again, the ceremony is somewhat explained, but it's not explained in great detail. So they leave a little bit up there, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Moving past that, we also have these. This is the criticism I remember in the theater when I was watching the movie, because Michael B. Jordan is really the main villain of the movie. His name's I forget. His name is Evan, I believe, but he's called Killmonger, and basically he leads Andy Serkis's character Ulysses Claw to this museum in London that has a Wakandan artifact in it. Now, he then proceeds to break into in the middle of the day. They then proceed to kill a bunch of the security guards and steal this Wakandan artifact, mainly just for the vibranium. It's a little, it looks like a garden hoe almost, or an axe. And Andy Serkis breaks the head off of it, and he plans on selling the vibranium because it's extremely valuable, because nowhere else really has it but Wakanda. Um, so that's really the only scene we have of Killmonger in the early part of the movie. Then we basically lose him for about 40 minutes, which is interesting because then we're focusing more or less in on Claw, almost entirely. So Claw then tries to sell it. Now, here's one of the plot holes in the film, is that apparently Wakanda keeps tabs on every single piece of vibranium on the planet that has come from Wakanda, because they are immediately notified that on their information boards that the piece of vibranium from the Wakandan axe in the museum has been taken. And they know that it was by Ulysses Claw. They go over that he's stolen vibranium from them before, and he's killed people, and blah 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 blah. Essentially your essential villain stuff. And I'll say this: Andy Serkis plays a great psychopath. He does an amazing job. I really really liked him in this movie. Um, but he really plays like just a great psycho. And that all the laughing, and he's so sadistic, but it works because he's so brutal of a character. And I don't know exactly. I don't know if they padded his jacket or something, but he looks like he got jacked up for this movie. He looks like he gained a lot of muscle, even though they don't have a scene with where he has his shirt off. But they make him look very intimidating, very big, broad shoulders and stuff, and tattoos and shit. Um, but essentially, the next segment of the movie is them going after Claw. This is where they come into contact with Martin Freeman, his character, Ross, and they basically find out that his whole thing is that. So they basically find out that after they come into contact with Martin Freeman's character, who knows T'Challa, um, they find out that apparently Andy Serkis or Claw is doing a deal with Ross. But here's the other thing: is they never find out why he's doing a deal with him. They never really understand, and the only thing that he says is oh, what the U.S. government does is our own business, and blah 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 blah. They never say. They never like explicitly say why he's buying the vibranium from Claw and where it came from. Uh, well, he never asked where it came from, I should say. But it's really, really weird. Um, Again, I feel like it's just to advance the plot, and they almost turned Martin Freeman into the token white guy in the movie, which I find kind of hilarious. But it basically they do a couple of good things too. They give Claw his laser arm from the comic books, which is really interesting, and they also introduce a lot of the technology that we see. Uh, More advanced technology than what we originally saw in Civil War. There's a lot of it, including the Black Panther suit itself, which apparently can absorb and also release kinetic energy that's stored inside of it, thanks to T'Challa's sister Shuri. And she's essentially, I should go through a little bit more of the cast. Shuri is, like I said, is his younger sister, but she's a tech whiz. She makes a lot of the technology that advances Wakanda. Basically, she's pretty much an inventor. Aside from her, you have the main bodyguard, and I apologize if I don't remember her name very well. Um, where she's kind of she's a main part of the movie as well as Shuri. Basically, it's the two of them and Lupita Nyong'o and Chadwick Boseman who are the kind of the main crew in the in terms of the main good guys that we follow for most of the film. Um, but back to what I was saying before. You know, they do after they've captured Claw. Basically, they want to bring him back to Wakanda to stand trial for his crimes. They're going to plan on breaking him out anyway and stealing him if Martin Freeman won't give him over willingly. But Killmonger essentially beats them to the punch and takes him anyway. Now, during this fight, T'Challa notices that there is a ring on a chain that is around Killmonger's neck. And the ring is a royal ring of Wakanda, which is only supposed to be held by the royal bloodline. I believe only actually the males of the royal bloodline. So he has it, his father has it, his grandfather had it, and any other male blood relatives of their family have it. So he now goes to Forrest Whitaker's character, which I believe is Suri, not Shuri, Suri, um, and kind of probes him about the ring because he was a very close friend to his father. Forrest Whitaker was a very close friend to T'Challa's father, and he would know. And he's very reluctant when he says it. And it's actually a really good scene. It's kind of heartfelt. A lot of this movie, I mean, again, this is supposed to be a royal family. A lot of this feels kind of like it feels kind of like a bit Shakespearean in a way, but not, obviously it's not Shakespearean, but, a bit in a way of kind of like a Macbeth or a Hamlet where you're dealing with a royal family that has skeletons in its closet. But basically, he helps explain the first scene of the film, because apparently, not right after, the reason why T'Chaka was able to find out about his younger brother selling or liberating the vibranium was because one of the other people in his brother's entourage was a Wakandan spy who was Forrest Whitaker when he was younger. Um, So because of that, T'Chaka's younger brother decides to, in anger, takes out a pistol and tries to kill him. But T'Chaka whacks the pistol out of his hand and kills him in the process. By burying his claws into his chest for some reason. I don't know why he couldn't just disarm him. That was kind of a weird choice for why to kill him. But basically, Forrest Whitaker explains that he was going to kill him, and King T'Chaka saved his life. He killed his younger brother in order to save him, which means he basically believes himself to be unworthy, and King T'Chaka made him promise not to tell anybody. Um, and that was the whole reason behind uh, behind kind of the that first scene was to kind of get you to show that, and then there's more context that's even added to it later on. And what happens is we then move forward and we find out that Michael B. Jordan's character Killmonger has shown up at the Wakandan gates, and he has Ulysses Claw's body, who he killed in an earlier scene. So basically, that's his in. The entire purpose of the entire thing was to get an in. Now, I don't understand why he couldn't. I mean, again, Ulysses Claw was wanted by the Wakandan government no matter what anyway. So I don't know why he wouldn't just go kill him, because he was very capable of doing it the entire time. Why he didn't just go kill him and then just bring him there and dump him off and just do. You literally almost could have skipped over a third of the plot of the movie if he had just done that. And there was no reason why he didn't just do it. So again, that was odd. That was a bit of a plot hole. But going into it, basically he uh, is able to gain an audience with T'Challa, and he claims that he is the son of King T'Chaka's younger brother, who was abandoned in America after King T'Chaka murdered his father. And basically, nobody believes him until he presents the ring. T'Challa knows this to be true because Forrest Whitaker told him that he was killed, and then he tells him about the son that was basically left there and not taken back to Wakanda. We also learned that apparently Michael B. Jordan got his lip tattoo. That all Wakandans have this little thing that's tattooed on the inside of their lip that glows blue, and basically that's how they identify that they are a Wakandan. It's kind of a weird thing. It's kind of like Norman Reedus from like Blade 2, where he has the tattoo on the inside of his lip, the vampire glyph. It's essentially it's the same idea, except it's a Wakandan writing in like glowing blue vibranium ink or something. I don't know why half those people don't die of heavy metal poisoning at this point, but after this happens, Michael B. Jordan then challenges T'Challa for the throne, saying that because he is a blood relative, he is allowed to do it. And because he was not there when T'Challa took his throne, he did not have a chance to, so now he is doing it. And this is allowed for some insane, stupid reason. And again, this is one of those things that I don't really get about this. Is they do this whole thing where like, all right, everybody just accepts that he. I mean, we all know that he is. I get that, but T'Challa has already been sworn in as the king. So the ceremony has ended. So that would mean that if the older king, T'Chaka, had had a long lost relative that nobody knew about, and he showed up with the right credentials, essentially, the ring and everything like that, 10 years into his reign, he could say, I challenge you. I wasn't there when you were sworn in. It's like, no, it's already happened. It's happened. He is the king. He rules now. You weren't there. Sorry, you missed the boat. So again, this doesn't really make that much sense, but it's more just to further the plot. And we also find out from Martin Freeman that apparently this guy, uh, Evan, I forget the full name that they give him, but Killmonger is basically super. He's basically Winter Soldier 2.0. Except without the brainwashing. He's just an angry, pissed off guy who murders a shit ton of people. So they fight. T'Challa loses, and he is thrown. Whenever they have the fights, they're on this big like waterfall type thing. So he gets sliced up a bunch, and then he gets thrown off the waterfall, and everybody thinks he's dead. Of course, he's not dead. It's his first movie. You're not gonna kill him off in the first movie. It's one of those things. I kind of hate it. It's a bit of a trope with some films where you say, oh, like 2/3 of the way through, you kill off the guy. Like, no, there's an hour left in this damn movie. He's gonna come back. He's gonna come back and he's gonna beat him. That's what's gonna happen. So now Killmonger is the king of Wakanda, and he orders a few different things. But actually, before I get to that, basically, when they become king, they go on like this vision quest thing. So when they have the ritual, they lose the Black Panther powers through some potion or whatever the hell they drink for the fight scene, basically, where they become just men and they fight. Now, when they get the Black Panther powers back, they drink this little purple fruit that comes out of a flower. And that fruit gives them the Black Panther abilities. But when they drink it, they bury them in sand, and then they go on this vision quest where they go and meet their predecessors, essentially. They go to this, what's referred to as the land of the Panther God, I think is how they phrase it at the very beginning of the film. And they kind of meet their forefathers. And so T'Challa did it earlier in the film, where he meets his father and basically wishes him good luck and all that. And then it happens to Killmonger, and he meets his father in the dirty old apartment in Oakland. And his father basically says that he is sorry that he turned out that way. Essentially, he's like, yeah, he basically that he screwed up and that he turned out like a piece of shit. So that's hilarious. But we also then find out after Killmonger has taken the throne what his goal is, and his goal is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in a movie in a very long time. And his entire goal is Wakandans are around the planet. That basically, we find out that Wakanda has spies in many, many different countries. So his whole idea is he wants to send weapons out to all these agents in various large cities and topple world governments in order to unite them under Wakanda. But the way that he phrases it and the way that he seems to think of it is the idea that he is going to liberate every single black person on the planet from what he believes is tyranny. And it's very, very social justicey, I dare say. It's not a great motivation. Like, his motivation, just based on his bloodline, is better than adding in the social commentary. The fact that he was thrown to the side and stuff like that, and he was supposed to be given all this stuff, and he got left behind. That's more of a compelling motivation than I want to. I want to topple every other government that's run by white people. Um, it's very, very again, they add these social cues into it that I feel like they don't need to be there, and they just drag the movie down to a point. He makes constant references to slaves and stuff like that at the beginning of the movie when he steals the vibranium axe head. uh, he makes a remark to a woman who's a professor at the museum that, oh, your ancestors didn't pay when they took this from Wakanda. They just took it, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay, we get it. Like, you're again, the only plus out of this is he's portrayed as the villain, so it makes sense that he's a jackass. But they also kind of have this other weird plot line where Wakanda wants to keep itself shut off from the world, and the whole idea is, no, we should go out into the world and share what we have and stuff like that instead of keeping it in our own borders. And that's kind of the subplot of the whole movie. But I digress. So Killmonger gains control. He burns the gardens where they have the little panther plants that grow so that nobody else can become the Black Panther again. But Lupita Nyong'o's character sneaks in and steals one of the fruits before it can be burned. So they plan on giving it to the leader of the fifth tribe that's kind of off in the mountains, the Gorilla tribe. And the whole goal is to basically use him to now topple this new Wakandan government before they can essentially destroy the world. So the only ones that are left are T'Challa's mother, Shuri, the bald spear lady. Again, sorry, I can't remember her damn name. Um, and Martin Freeman's character, and they are all going up to the mountains in order to recruit the leader of the gorilla clan and give him the fruit. Um, Now, at the same time, basically Michael B. Jordan, basically Killmonger, has taken everything with an iron fist. He rules with tyranny, but he's also recruited some of the more militant, I guess, Wakandans to his side, where they want to go and lash out and go and conquer and seek war. And these guys ride on like armored rhinos, which is actually really really cool. Especially the visual of it, but it's just kind of like it's almost gratuitous, but it actually does work very well when they have them in a fight scene. So the family goes there and they find out that apparently T'Challa has washed ashore in up the river from where he went in, and he's barely alive. He is apparently being kept in a cryogenic stasis in the snow. Don't ask me how that works, where you put a man who appears to be mostly in the nude in the snow to keep him alive. For extended periods of time, because that's really not how that's supposed to work. But the other thing that I find kind of funny is they said, "Oh, one of our fishermen found him." That was the line that the leader gave them. It's like, you live up in the mountains. Water Gravity doesn't work in reverse. He was down in like a tropical area, and you're up in snow-covered mountains. So you're telling me the river went up the mountain and dumped him off somewhere up there? I'm sorry. It just seems a little odd. Again, it's the logistics more or less of how he got there. But essentially, he's there. So they use the panther fruit on him, and he gets to meet his father again, and he asks like why he left them behind, why he left the other one behind, and everything like that. And basically, T'Challa has resolved himself to reveal Wakanda to the world and share its secrets. Um, and with that, we move into the final act, which is T'Challa versus Killmonger. Now, earlier in the film, they set up this thing where basically there's a train line that transports vibranium, but because vibranium basically absorbs kinetic energy, they can't put it on a train because it would blow up the train for whatever reason in its raw state. So Shuri created this train track that has these dampeners that make it so that the vibranium doesn't absorb as quickly, and therefore it can be transported. Now, this is where basically Black Panther and Killmonger, who Killmonger now has a Black Panther suit, and since he's had the Black Panther fruit, he has the same powers as T'Challa. So those two wind up fighting down on the train tracks, while everybody else kind of fights up above. And at the last minute, the Gorilla Tribe comes in and saves the day, sort of thing. But there's a few scenes in there that kind of they're hampered a little bit by a PG-13 rating. And one of them is a scene where there's supposed to be Killmonger has one of the spear women, the soldiers, at basically at knife point or at spear point, whatever. He has her by the throat, and she says "Wakanda forever," and then he slits her throat and she falls down. There's no blood. She just got her throat slit and there's no blood. I'm aware it's a PG-13 movie, but at the same time, it's like you couldn't just have like a little bit of a blood spurt or even just like a pool next to her or something like that when she falls on the ground. It literally looks like he like just let her go and she fainted and fell on the ground. Again, I feel like it's more of a drawback for the rating than it is for the film, but just something to mention. Um, I do like the fight scene. The fights are actually really, really good. They're pretty hilarious in some ways. Some of the CGI does not work very well. I will say that some of it gets a bit cartoony. But uh, you know, th- going back to the main fight, which is T'Challa and Killmonger, it's not that great. I don't really find it that good. It's very short, actually, just based on screen time. It's cut with the fight between them and then the fight that's happening above between the warring factions. So it makes it a bit longer, pads it out. But in the end, it's really not that great of a fight. And then it ends where T'Challa is able to take a spear and stab a vibranium spear, a vibranium spear and stab Killmonger in the chest, and this winds up killing him. Now, the last scene is actually really, really good because they have this scene where they show when Killmonger goes and meets his father after he takes the Panther fruit. He talks about the Wakandan sunrise and how beautiful it is and everything. And so the last scene is T'Challa bringing Killmonger out to a cliff outside of the cave, and he shows him a Wakandan sunset. Um, and it's supposed to be this moment where he finally gets to see the beauty of the country and everything. And T'Challa offers it again. This is one of those kind of scenes at the end that feels like it was written with a social message in mind that is just very cringy, and it ruins a very good moment in the film where T'Challa says we can still heal you, and he says to do what? To put me in chains. Our people have already been in chains long enough. They chose just bury me at sea, like the people that jumped off the boats. He's basically talking about people that jumped off slave boats because they'd rather die than be a slave. Um, it's it again. It is such a cringy social message that they go with in this, where it should have been more about the royal family of Wakanda and less about pushing a social message that black people are still in bondage today. Except the chains are economical as opposed to physical. Um, it's a movie that suffers from that as opposed to benefiting from it. If you had had that subtly, if you had had kind of those subtle little messages in there, I think it would have worked a lot better as opposed to just hammering people over the head with it. It doesn't. The messages take away from the film as a whole. Uh, now that I've kind of gone through that, the whole thing at the end, T'Challa takes the throne now, and he wants Lupita Nyong'o to be his queen and all that, and then the movie ends. So to kind of close this out, this movie was meant to world build. It was meant to build Wakanda and to kind of show it to you because we hadn't seen it yet. We'd only seen Black Panther and Civil War, and we'd only kind of heard of Wakanda. We hadn't really seen much of it. Or any of it really, um, except for actually, sorry, the very end of Civil War we do see it, but it did a good job of kind of building that Wakandan culture and showing us the visuals and all the subtle stuff and everything that's involved in that. It did a very, very good job at establishing and world building. And to be honest, I like the story. I like the baseline of the story. If they took out the social messages, I think it would be a lot better. And if you streamlined it, I think it would have been a lot better. Again, there are portions of this that could have been taken out. I think you could have had more of a role for. I think you could have had more of a role for Michael B. Jordan, where he just disappears for 40 minutes of the film. Again, I do like his character, but at the same time, everybody was toting like, "Oh, he's such a great character." It's like, no, he has a great motivation. His character is shitty. I don't really like his again, I think he's a good actor. I like Michael B. Jordan and a lot of the things that he does. I think he's very funny, actually, when he's not playing somebody who's an a-hole. But ultimately, Killmonger has a really good backstory and a really good motivation. But the actual execution and the acting and the dialogue with him is terrible. I don't really enjoy it at all, actually, from that perspective. Again, he feels kind of like a Hamlet or something like that, where he's out to kill in order to take the throne or something like that. So, again, people were toting him as the best Marvel villain ever. He's not by leaps and bounds. He is not. Thanos is a far better villain than he is, and many, many other Marvel villains are better than him. But you go back after that. Most of the other supporting cast are very good. The constant African accents kind of wear on you a little bit after a while, but you do get used to them. Um, I think Chadwick Boseman did a fairly good job, even though his performance was kind of bland. He's portrayed as a strong king, or a strong person, a stoic person. And I liked that. I enjoyed that. I thought that his performance was good. And I liked him in Civil War as well. So that kind of carries over into this. The supporting cast was pretty good. I like most of the Wakandan characters. Andy Serkis again was really really good. I loved him as a psychopath. He did a really good job as a psychopath. Martin Freeman was pretty boring. He doesn't really have a character arc. Again, I feel like he's just the token white guy that's just in there for no reason. Or maybe it was more that he's kind of supposed to have the point of view of the outsider, and I get that. But again, he just felt like he was like, all right, he's the token white guy. We had to throw a white guy in. So, at the end of the day, if I was to give this film a rating, I would have to give this 6 armored rhino charges out of 10. So now that we're through Black Panther, we're kind of on the home stretch. Next time we will be looking at the sequel to 2015's Ant-Man with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Because chronologically, even though that was premiered after Infinity War, that actually takes place before Infinity War. And we have the return of Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Pena, and Michael Douglas, with the addition of veteran actor Lawrence Fishburne. So look forward to that. I'll try to get that out tomorrow. And thank you very much for listening. Remember, if you have any comments, leave them below. Hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?